Hey all, good evening. We'll just do a quick audio video check. I'm checking with my team whether they're able to see me, hear me. Once I get a thumbs up, or if any of you who's live, if you can give me a thumbs up, I'll see it on the chat and we can get started. Hey, thanks, Sandeep. Thank you so much. Got the yes from you, so can get started. Good evening, everyone. This is going to be the last session, YouTube live Q&A session for us for 2024. We are in December. So we'll basically look at uh, a couple of things that people will have in mind during this time of the year. One of the things that I usually get to hear when December approaches is that people who are yet to take their GMAT have this idea in mind. Will I be able to catch admission season for an MBA that starts in 2025? We'll evaluate who would possibly be able to do it, who will not be able to do it. And then we'll also look at, is it a good time? When should you start your GMAT preparations? If you're looking ahead, if you're looking at 2026 fall, when should you start your GMAT preparation? So to have everything in place and working for you properly. So let's get started. The first of the questions that I would like to answer is this. Is it possible to catch deadlines for starting MBA in 2025? Yes and no, right? Let's say, when is it an yes, when is it no? And before that, we got about 5, 6 questions which students have posted in various forums, including WhatsApp group, Telegram group, under social assets. I'll answer those questions to some extent. Subsequently, if any of you have questions, you can always post it in the chat box. I will take those questions and answer it after that. My colleague Shweta, who handles her verbal, Shweta doesn't need any introduction to people who watch this channel. Shweta has got a 7.8 in the GMAT and an MBA from UC Marshall. So she will also be answering it in the chat box. So I think that Shweta would take the tougher ones and leave the easier ones for me. On that note, let's just get started. Like, is it possible to start? Yes, certainly you will be able to catch R2 deadlines, provided, like, this is a caveat. If you already started your GMAT preparation, and you're really close to taking the GMAT, right? We are roughly around the 15th of December. If you plan to take the GMAT anytime on or before the Christmas, right, 25th of December, you should be able to catch all R2 deadlines without a problem. Most R2 deadlines for US business schools will fall from the first week of January, say 3rd, 4th of January, and could extend all the way up to the 20th of January, depending upon which school you're applying to. Check out their deadlines. I'll request Shweta to basically give you the URL where Wizako has collated the list of top schools for which the deadlines for R2 deadlines are available. So you'll have it all in one single place. You can have a snapshot of it instead of looking at multiple places, right? So you'll get to an idea about which of the schools have deadlines when, note it down, put all kinds of reminders if you can, do a Google Calendar, Outlook Calendar, and any other app that could give you a thing. We've had people who missed deadlines thinking that it was on December 7th when the deadline was actually on December 2nd. We had someone recently doing that for TUC. For TUC has one early round decision for round 2 also, where they say that if you apply by this date, you would be guaranteed an interview, and the student basically thought it was December 7th and missed it. So don't let such a thing happen to you, right? So this is one of the things. So make these reminders and hold it. So if you're taking the GMAT by the 25th of December and it turns out to be the way you want, usually GMAT says that they will send the scores to the schools in 1 to 3 days is what they're promising, with a star obviously on their website saying that it could take up to 20 days. This is a deadline season, and so they're going to be very serious about it. So it's not likely to take 20 days. Take by the 25th of December, by the 3rd or 5th of January, definitely your score should be with the school. So if you're that close to the GMAT, if your mocks are good and you know it's happening, you'll be able to catch round 2 deadlines. But the moment your GMAT is over, you should possibly be spending 36 hours a day on your application essays, because if you're catching at least 3 schools, the first set of essays that you're working on are going to be the ones that are going to be quite intensive, right? That's where, like, you're going to collate your thoughts, put things in place. So I've already written your essays and kept it, saying that the GMAT is the last plug for me. Once I got that in place, that's the last piece that should go into it for me to make it happen, then that's not a problem. But if you're beginning your essays only at that point in time, invest all the time that you have, get your resume in place. The resume is not your typical job interview resume, right? Where you talk about your technical skills. Your MBA business school application resume is a little different. Work on it. If you have already signed up with a consultant, basically prime them up saying that, hey, only by the 25th of December I'm going to be ready. Tell them you're going to be 11th hour, not 11th hour, probably a 13th hour student who is going to basically ask them for help. So keep all of these in place. You'll be able to catch round 2 deadlines. If you just started your GMAT preparation, planning to start your GMAT preparation and the likes, then R2 deadlines for US business schools is practically out of the window. You've lost that, ship has sailed, right? So you don't have a choice with that. What can you do? There are a couple of Asian schools, very good schools, NUS, National University of Singapore, and NTU, Nanyang Tech University. Both of these have their deadlines falling in March and March first week and March end, I think. One of them has their deadline on the 31st of March and the other one has March 3rd or something, if I remember right. So give or take, we got the whole of January, February, and half of December. So even if you just taken your first step toward your GMAT examination, you should be able to do justice to it and catch those deadlines. But then you need to prepare adequately for taking the GMAT by end of February, which means give or take, you need to invest minimum of 3 hours each day without fail. And during weekends, you need to top it by about with another 5-6 hours of preparation, right? So that kind of preparation, you will be able to catch some good business school for a 2025. So anyone who's starting now, you have fewer schools. Anyone who's already started, you have taken the GMAT, already have the score. This question does not apply to you at all. You definitely will be able to catch round 2 deadlines, and you should catch round 2 deadlines. If you still are thinking about taking help for your application essays from someone, Shweta and I help with a handful of people. We probably have a couple of slots open this year where we can help students with the round 2 deadlines. We would be able to help only those people who have already taken the GMAT, because the last 1 week we may not be able to do justice to it. So if you're still looking at it, you can always reach out to our team. Subbu and Sai would be more than happy to give you information and details about it, right? Probably 2 people is what we'll be able to do justice with. The extra additional people we're already working with, right? Let's move on from here. Let's go to this part. If you're not in the 2025 bandwagon and you're looking at 2026, when should you start your GMAT preparation? Ideally, you should start your GMAT preparation by January 2025. Sounds a little too soon, right? The MBA starts in August 2026, right? 8th month there. We have 12 months in 2025, 8 months there. 20-month preparation, yes, you'll sometimes find that's a little inadequate in a way, right? We'll just lay out the timeline as to what happens at different points in time, and then you would possibly know why this is a very good time to start your GMAT preparation. Typically, GMAT preparations, I would bend every now and then to, I should have kept the screen to not go off, right? It's going off every now and then. I need to see the chat box, so therefore I'll move out and come back, right? Right, let's look at what we are talking about. The timelines to prepare, right? GMAT preparation, for a good GMAT preparation, it would require about 300 to 400 hours, right? This is 300 hours excluding the time it takes for you to take the mocks, which would be about 5 to 6 mocks. You have already been in touch with some of these things. If you just come out of college 1 or 2 years, during college you did justice to some examination like a CAT, or you did justice to your campus placement examinations. In that case, you should not have too much of a problem. If you have lost touch with education for a long time, let's say you're a mid-career manager, you have like 7-8 years of experience, you're like closer to your 30 than to your 20s. In that case, many of these things would be in the distant past. As in, like, someone tells you quadratic equation, you'll say, yeah, I know, I learned it some time back. No, what about it is what you're likely to ask. If you are that rustic with respect to basics, then you probably need 400 hours, right? Essentially, the difference is getting those basics in place would require another 100 hours. This is the difference we are talking about. Let's go with someone who requires about 300 hours of preparation. You start with a classroom program. It could be a live online class, it could be a physical class. Figure out what mode works for you. Again, I very seriously recommend people to take up some structured preparation process, right? There are a lot of free resources available. The thing with the free resources is many times you do not get all of it free. You'll get, for example, a part of quant, a lot of that will be available. The remaining part of quant may not be available. Same might hold good for, you might get 3-4 question types in critical reasoning availability in abundance, but you may not have it for the other 4 question types. And the second thing that also happens is many times these are questions and answers. They may not necessarily provide you with a structured way of learning the fundamentals and then moving to the questions. If solving questions were the only way you could crack a good score in the GMAT, then this solving the question bank would suffice. But GMAT also requires you to have some amount of fundamentals in place. So pick a preparation methodology which is structured, which goes from fundamentals, gives you questions which are like topic wise, and then takes you to the GMAT level and then provides you with mock. I mean, it should have the entire spectrum of A to Z of the GMAT preparation. Find something that would work for you. It could be a private tutor, typically likely to be quite expensive. It could be live online classes. It could be pre-recorded live courses. It could be physical classroom program. My suggestion is do that evaluation. Use the entire December to go through this entire process. Pick ones that come to your mind, right? Do a bit of research on the internet and then basically attend demos or take trials from each of these things. Does Wizako offer demo classes? Yes, we do. The link will follow soon. And we also offer trial for people to our recorded course, right? The URLs are wzko.in/demo and wzko.in/pro, right? So these would appear on the chat boxes soon, right? The whole point is do it with not just with Wizako. I would recommend attend a few more. The thing with the learning is each of us have different teaching styles as tutors. And as students also, we have different learning. We gel well with some tutors and not so with others, right? So let's say you might like Shweta's teaching so much and you may not like my teaching at all. And if you, this could be a possibility that could work for, which could happen. So check with the places whether that kind of teaching style and tutoring style is something that you think will work for you. Once you've found among the 3, 4 that you've shortlisted, one that works for you, sign up with that. That process should possibly be done in the month of December. Subsequently, you can start your preparation in January. It takes about 2 to 3 months, many of these classroom programs and live classes. At the end of, let's say, March, you should have done all the class-related things, and then you start with your self-study. Takes about another 45 days to do the self-study in terms of practicing on a specific topic basis and then specific section wise. Topic wise is basically you do number properties, and then section wise you do the quant section. So topic wise, section wise, and then the entire thing. Do about 5 to 6 mocks, fine tune your strategy with the mocks, and then take the GMAT sometime by mid-May. Why mid-May? I'll come to that in a while. If the first GMAT that you take works out to be your GMAT, right, that's wonderful. You have a target score, let's say 695. Get a 705. You basically close the chapter as far as writing the GMAT, you bank the score, and then you can start looking at which schools to apply to and start with that process. Usually in the Indian scenario, as early as March, the MBA tour will start virtual events. Sometimes it could even happen in February of the year. And the QS MBA tour, there are a lot of good business schools participate in it. They typically visit India and have in-person QS MBA tours in 5 to 6 cities in India. And those are scheduled sometime from the late June to the early July. So why does having this GMAT score and this MBA tours and other things, where is the connection between these two? Let's say you have a 655 GMAT score versus you have a 725 GMAT score. If you have a 655 GMAT score and you have decided, I'm going to apply to schools with this 655, right? No more GMAT taking, if that is what you have decided. Nothing wrong with it. You can come to that decision and it's completely a valid and right decision to make. Then you can basically look at, hey, these are the kind of schools in which I have a good shot at getting an admission with a 655 GMAT. And then you look at the QS MBA tour, there are 30 schools that are participating. Then you know that if you have an average profile from an Indian test taker point of view, Indian applicant point of view, right? You have an engineering degree or a chartered accountant kind of a professional degree, have 3 to 4 years of experience, normal good companies, right? It could be multinationals, it could be Indian companies, 3-4 years of experience, good profile, but nothing that is extraordinary, right? It's a normal profile that any good Indian student is expected to have. That's the most common applicant pool that you're going to be seeing from India. In that case, you probably will not even go to the UC Berkeley stall because Haas Business School comes in the top 10 schools with a 655 GMAT score and a good profile, which is an average Indian profile. Your chances of making into a school like Haas is limited. So you would probably not even invest time with them. You'll go to something else where there is a better chance for you. So you look at schools that rank between 15 and 35 and go and meet them and invest time with them. Conversely, if you have a 725 plus, you go to 2 schools, let's say, the Haas Berkeley, you have a good chance for the same profile that we are talking about. So you'll find out what works, what does not work. You'll have good questions to ask them. Similarly, you might go to a school which is in the mid 25s to mid 20s to mid 30s, right? Say something like Fisher, Ohio, right? When you go and speak to them, we'll not just talk about admissions, we'll start talking about what are the possibilities of scholarships. Again, we have examples of students, right? We had a gentleman by name Karthik who got an admission from TEPI with 100% scholarship. He had a 750 GMAT. This is in the classic GMAT version. And he also had an admission from UNC Kenan Flagler where he got only 30% tuition fee waiver, right? At that point in time, he basically decided, I want a better brand name. I'm willing to take the risk of borrowing. He borrowed in US Discover Loan and he did his MBA from Kenan Flagler, which is a better ranked school than TEPI. There was another gentleman by name Vimal who also had a 750 in the GMAT. He had an admission from Ross and he also had an admission from Ohio Fisher. Ross did not give him any waiver at all. He had to pay for it fully. Whereas Fisher gave him a 100% tuition fee waiver. He graduated from Fisher saying that when I graduate from a business school, I don't want to be carrying the load of a loan. So what I'm trying to tell you is you can have different engagements with different schools in the QS MBA tour, in the MBA tour that happen. If you know what your GMAT score is, at 655, you'll talk one language. At 725, you're going to be talking a completely different language. And you need to know what that is. Can you attend these tours without a GMAT score? Certainly, yes, you can. But then you're going to be like going and looking at, say, for example, I'm trying to, if I plan to buy a car, for instance, right? I need to know is my budget 15 lakhs or is my budget 50 lakhs, right? If I go without a budget in mind at all, then I might quite likely not end up buying a car at all, right? You need to know what your score potential is to be able to do justice to these things, right? Then it becomes that much more meaningful. So a GMAT score by May 15th is wonderful, but what if the first GMAT did not turn out to be the way you wanted it to be? You can take a second GMAT. Technically, you need only 16 calendar days to take the second GMAT. But again, through experience, you realize people need anything from 30 to 40 days to do all the course corrections based on what did not work out for them in the first iteration and then get it right in the second iteration, which means that by June end is when you're going to have the true GMAT score that you have been looking for. Let's say you were aiming for a 705 plus. You ended up with a 675 plus. Is 675 a good score? Awesome score, honestly. But you set the target at 705 plus. So, and you choose to take the test again. That's perfectly valid. That's a good decision to hold on to. The next iteration, it works out to be a 725 for you. Look at the kind of confidence with which you're going to be looking at schools. So taking this GMAT a second time, if it is warranted or if you choose to, you can do. We have had a student who had a 705 in the first attempt in GMAT and said, I'm going to take the GMAT a second time and ended up with a 735. So if I had got a 705 and I were applying, I would not take the GMAT again. But I'm not saying that he was right or incorrect. There is nothing that is right or wrong. It is what Baskar chose for Baskar, and it is what that gentleman chose for him. And he was right in deciding to write it a second time. And I would have been right in not wanting to take the chance a second time. So putting all of these in place, so you get ideas about what the schools want, how things work, interact with them, engage with them. You can attend all the webinars and alum meets that they have so that you get this to know the school better. You get the school to know you better. We've had instances where students have been asked by admissions office as to where is your application, when are you applying, right? There's a gentleman who went ISB. He had interacted with the schools for such a long time that the admission office used to call him, hey, when are you putting in your application? The deadline is, they goaded him to literally to apply and he graduated from ISB, right? So that is a kind of interaction and communication you have. Will that communication and interaction alone turn into an admission? No. But the whole point is, if you have a good GMAT score, a good profile, and then you have this added interaction, and the school is convinced that you're a good fit for them, your probability of converting that score and your profile into an admit goes up significantly. If you're starting your GMAT preparation, let's say by May of next year, can you still do justice to round 1 and round 2? Yes, you can. But by the time you are done with your GMAT, right, you start in May, June, July, August is probably when you would have the GMAT score. You'd just be diving right into the application deadlines. You would not have much time to do all of what I mentioned, right? So give yourself that room. And many times when you talk about this 4.5 months, something crops up always, right? There's a cousin, distant cousin who's coming for a wedding, and then you want to do a Himalayan trek with him, and that basically takes away 15 days from it. Probably your boss is like throwing in an additional responsibility on your plate, and then you do 2 weeks of late nights, your GMAT preparation takes a halt, right? So for all of these reasons, budget for things not working your way. If they work your way and you can have your GMAT score and the first score ready by May 15th, then you can do a summer holiday and do wonders with it, right? On that note, when is a good time to start the GMAT? If you're planning to get into a business school in 2026, that's Jan 2025. Look at the questions that have come and start answering those. Ma'am, it's wonderful to connect with you. Rakesh, good evening. Daniel, I have R2 deadline on 31st Jan. I'm comfortable with Quant DS, average in CR and DI, but frequently get RC wrong. I lack confidence and have hard time in comprehending passages. My target is 655. It goes on next. Can I still get the score by bombing RC on the exam? I think it'll take some time to improve RC. Can I improve it in 3 weeks? Yes, First and foremost, 50% of verbal is RC. And the second half, which is like critical reasoning, also to a large extent is reading and your ability to comprehend and make sense out of it. So let's not start by saying you're going to bomb the RC component of it. Let's see how we can make the RC component work for you, right? Uh, Invest a little more time in RC and getting it in place. Let's say you're going to get about 4 passages roughly. My thing is, uh, oftentimes when we try to do justice to all four, see, don't do this 1 or 0, saying that I'm going to bomb the RC is like 0, I'm going to get all of them right is 1. Let's settle for something like a 0.7, 0.8 in this scale of 0 to 1. What would that 0.7, 0.8 typically be? Right? We essentially say that I'll start with this premise right now. I'll start with this premise. If I can improve on it, it's wonderful. I'll probably be willing to sacrifice 1 RC passage. Is it the ideal way to go about it? Not really. But what you have read, I'm taking whatever you are saying at face value. Can you do justice to it? Say that I'm going to leave 1 RC passage out. That suddenly gives you a lot of time to do justice to the rest of it. Many a times when we are under time pressure, we tend to make more mistakes, both in terms of reading, because we tend to read fast and comprehend poorly, and also read the questions incorrectly and pick incorrect answer options. The moment you say that I'm going to take it lightly and slowly, oftentimes, because you are in a relaxed frame of mind, you would do things much faster and you would get more things right. That you would eventually, after the 2-3 mocks iteration, realize that I'll go with this thing, do the fourth passage if I can possibly do, and you might be able to get some of those fourth passages also in place. Even if not all 2-3 questions in it, might be able to say, hey, okay, this question I might be able to grasp this and do it. Those possibilities exist, right? So can you do justice in 3 weeks for RC? You certainly will be able to do justice in 3 weeks for RC. Jan 31st is a long way. It's not just 3 weeks. You have 4.5 weeks in January and you have about 2 weeks. So you've got a 6.5 week window to do justice to RC. So till such point in time, you can actually do. R2 deadline is 31st Jan. So about 24th of Jan is what we are talking about. You have 40 days to write the GMAT. So you don't need to worry. Push your GMAT as out as you can, so that you give yourself adequate time to do justice to this preparation. Take the question from Muthu. Planning to start my GMAT prep in early 2025 with a target upward of 705. How many days should my prep be? How should my daily prep look like? We just covered it a little bit ago, but I'll quickly recap it for your sake. Right? Your typical GMAT preparation would be about 3 to 4 months. Typically, 4 months is a good time to do GMAT preparation. 300 hours is what we are looking at. Break it down into number of weeks. We're talking about 15 weeks of preparation, and we need 300 hours to plug it into it, which means that we're talking about 20 hours of preparation every week. Give yourself 2 hours during the week. 5 days a week, that's 10 hours. And then you need another 10 hours during the weekend. So 5 plus 5 during the weekend is what we are looking at. If you're attending classes, typically these classes will run for either 2 sessions if it's weekends. If it is weekdays, they're likely to have 3 sessions for you. So 2 to 3 hours, which is like 6 hours of preparation during the week, gets covered for you. So another 4 hours is what you need to do during the week if it's a weekday session. How do you plug that in? The same class timings that you have during the weekdays, on the days that you don't have class, study during those also. So you've done your 10-hour preparation there. During weekends, invest exclusively 5 hours. Obviously, 5 full hour stretch is not going to work. Break it into typically 1 hour components. Find 5 1 hour slots. Usually try and get those 1 hour slots before your personal and professional life catches up, right? Typically, if you don't work for a different time zone, the world wakes up by around 6:37 and they try to catch you up only after 8 o'clock. So you try to plug it in earlier. You start at 5, you catch 2 hours of preparation there. Late night, most people stay awake these days, but you can always feign to be one of those early birds who sleeps by 9 o'clock and then shut off your phone and everything and catch another 2 to 3 hours in the night between 9 and midnight. So basically figure out a way to get the stakeholder buy-in into what you're doing, and then keep yourself away from distraction during those hours. For example, if you're in a meeting with a client, there's no one who is going to be disturbing you, right? Right from your boss to your parents to your spouse if you're married, and all of these people will know that you're in a meeting with a client and they're going to leave you aside. If they can respect that time, they will also respect this time if you have their buy-in for a GMAT preparation, right? So about 300 hours split into 15 weeks, 20 hours each week, 10 hours during the week and during weekdays, and 10 hours during weekends is typically how you should basically line this up. Again, tweak these things. The 300 hours could essentially become 250 for you, or you might need it as 350. Keep making those adjustments dynamically. One thing I want to insist or like kind of suggest at this point in time, try and see if you can get fixed time slots during all of these days. For example, 5 to 6 and 6 5 to 7 5. in the morning, I'm going to be studying every day. If you can fix something like that, it becomes a habit. You kind of look forward to it after the first week. And people also know by the time that 5 to 7 in the morning, this guy cannot be disturbed, this girl cannot be disturbed, is something that comes into their frame of mind. So to get that rhythm, both for you and for people around you, it's good to have a fixed study schedule. Another thing which again I also notice is that during those windows, do not refer to anything. For example, there's this, you read something and then you'll say, let me look for this explanation in GMAT club. The moment you move into GMAT club to look for an explanation, that's the end of doing any serious preparation, because you'll go for that explanation. There are 18 other distractions that will be there and you would fall into it. All of those are GMAT relevant distractions. All of those are business school relevant distractions. But do they count as preparation? Certainly not. So basically stay away from them as much as possible. Use your online course, use your books, whatever you're working on, just stick to it. If you have a doubt, circle it, note it. You can always do it after this 1 hour study window, right? On these two notes, I think kind of covered this. If you still have a follow-up question to this, post it again and I'll be more than happy to take it. Moving to the next end, how to approach if I'm aiming at executive MBA in, did I miss a lot of questions in between? Yeah, it just scrolled up. I'll take it. I'm planning to start. That's done. Muthu's questions. Sona, I'm writing the GMAT this week. Can I catch R2 deadlines? Certainly, very comfortably you'll be able to. We're taking the GMAT this week. We're in what, 13th, by 20th of December, let's say, latest you've completed your GMAT. That gives you about 15 days before you hit the first of the deadlines. 15 days, if you invest about 7 to 8 hours a day with breaks and other things, should be able to do justice to your complete application packet and catch all of these deadlines without a problem. Certainly will be able to do justice to it. If you have not started on your essay and you need, I would definitely advise you to look at help from some admission consultant, some essay editing source, because if you got a good GMAT score, you've invested a lot of time and effort into getting there, and you're going to be investing good amount of money in application fees and additional scores for GMAT and your language test and the likes. You would want your application to stand out in all respect. So if you're going to be investing lots of money and time into this process, you would want to see light at the end of the tunnel. You want a few admissions, some of them with probably scholarships. So don't take a chance in doing the applications just by yourself. Take help from someone. Find out who that person is. Again, the way I was talking about, attend demo classes and get a feel for whether that's a person with whom you can work with. Also find out, is this the consultant with whom I'll be able to work with? There are some great brand name consultants. There are not so brand name consultants. Sometimes the brand name consultants might work for you. Other cases, you might be able to gel better. Your story would relate to this person better. So figure out what that is and do that thing even as you're preparing for the GMAT right now. Taking breaks, see if you can schedule a call with them, speak to them, find out what happens, and then take it forward from there. What is the next question? I'm looking at what Shankar said. Planning to catch R2 admission cycle and my GMAT mock scores are not as expected. Will it make sense to shift to EA at this stage? Good question. You got me to think before I can give you an answer. Say, I'm not going to give you a direct yes or no, because it's not one of those things where you can say, can I catch R2 deadlines? You can catch. That's an easy question to answer. This is a tougher question, and Shweta has left me take it, so I'm going to take it. Right. So yes, EA. A couple of things to keep in mind. First, EA has sentence correction. If you've been preparing for the GMAT, EA has everything that GMAT has and something more on top of it, right? So if you have to start sentence correction anew, that's 1/3 of EA verbal. Yes. How many questions is it? Not too many. The EA itself is a shorter examination. Total of 14 questions in quant and verbal. That's 28 questions together, and 12 for IR is what they have. Of these 14, 1/3 is sentence correction. So give or take, we're talking about 5 questions from there. But because it's only 14 questions, each of these questions is going to matter a lot toward your EA score, right? So if you're reasonably good in sentence correction already to start with, right, then this shift is not going to be a problem. Having said that, because the portions are same, how does suddenly people, why is that shift to EA happening? That's primarily because of two things. One, the EA examination itself is a shorter examination, both in terms of duration and in terms of number of questions, right? One reason why GMAT mock scores tend to be lower is that GMAT is a more intense and a taxing examination, right? It's a 2 hour, 15-minute examination compared to EA being just a 90-minute, 1.5 hour examination. So it's 1/3 lesser. It's not just 1/3 lesser. This EA 1.5 hours, and you add another half a EA, that's where your GMAT is, right? It's 50% more than what EA is, right? At the end of 1.5 hours, right? Let's say you've run 10 kilometers, asking you to run another 1 more kilometer, it becomes so much more difficult than running the first kilometer, right? So that essentially comes into play in terms of how GMAT scores could take a significant dip if you are not able to maintain that mental stamina and the physical stamina to run through a 2 hour 15-minute examination. To that extent, EA tends to be easier. The second thing also about the EA is that the number of things, obviously time is lesser. You're answering only 40 questions compared to 64 questions. So mentally, you need to be tuned in with only 40 things that are thrown at you rather than 65 things or 64 things being thrown at you. That's another 60% more questions you have to answer in GMAT compared to what EA is, right? So EA can be an easier examination to run through in the exam setup, right? Therefore, it's a good thing to go with. Thing to keep in mind is that check out whether the program that you're planning to apply to accept EA, right? EA initially was designed as a test for the Executive MBA program. There are schools. Are you applying to the Executive MBA or we do not know what you're applying to, right? So and there are good, Columbia accepts EA score for their full-time MBA program, right? UCLA accepts it for their full-time program. HEC Paris accepts it for their full-time MBA program. So good number of schools accept the EA for their MBA programs. So if the programs that you're looking to apply to accept the EA, one, it will be given on their website, it will be given on the GMAT website. I would also request that you write a mail to their admissions office whether what they have said that is still holding good. Sometimes they may not have updated their website, that you would think that it's on the website and you do the entire process through EA, and then they suddenly say, hey, sorry, we are not accepting it this year. Just do a quick check with the shortlisted schools. Do that. And if you're good in sentence correction, your ability to shift from GMAT to EA could be seamless and you might get a good score. One other side thing what could play out well if the schools accept the EA is that EA has not been taken by so many people, and EA is typically taken by people with more years of experience. So getting a higher percentile in EA is probably a lot easier than getting a higher percentile in the case of GMAT. And because fewer people take the EA, your comparison, for example, in that applicant pool which the school is receiving, let's say Columbia is receiving 1,000 applicants, right? 600 of them might be applying with the GMAT, 380, 400 of them might be applying with the GRE, 20 of them might be applying with the EA score. So you are having a smaller population against which they're going to be comparing you, and they're going to be looking at percentiles for comparison. Your chance of scoring higher in the EA in terms of percentile is a lot better. So it's a good thing to switch if you're good in sentence correction and you're validated with schools that program that you're planning to apply to accepts the EA score. Right. I think I've answered your question. If you still have a doubt, you can always post back to us. Right. Daniel, I had written CAT recently and I'm getting 90 percentile. I would like to apply for USU admissions this year itself. Can I score good and get into a good, not necessarily M7, B schools by writing the GMAT? Admission this year itself, if you're planning to take, you got a 90 percentile in CAT, which is good. But having said that, there are significant differences between the CAT and the GMAT, right? If you're done good in the CAT quant, I think you should be able to sail through the GMAT quant, right? There are 21 questions, you should be able to get most of them right, and you could get an upward score upward of 85 in the quant section. But verbal and DI are different beasts compared to what happens in CAT, right? Verbal particularly has RC 50%, but the RC passages, as someone had asked a little while ago, right, are places where people could feel that they're going to bomb in a big way, right? Because the RC passages are densely written here and the answer options are quite close, that sometimes it would all make sense, but you do not know why things went wrong in it. So practicing for the RC is very important. And CAT does not have any meaningful critical reasoning in a big way, right? Whereas in GMAT, verbal, half of what you're going to be doing is critical reasoning, and those have 8-10 question types, and you need to know how to do them and have adequate practice. And doing justice to it in about 10 days is a little difficult. You need a little longer than that. The LRDA of CAT is tricky, is tiring, is tough. I know that. The data insights in GMAT is not of that kind, but it cannot translate that immediately into this. For example, if you say like, I can speak Mandarin, can I now quickly jump into speak German or Russian? All of these are tough languages to work with. I've learned a really tough language. Can I do justice to Russian in 10 days? You probably may not be able to do, because everything in this is a little new. And even the way the questions are set. For example, if you take the table analysis question, table itself is going to be easy. Table can be sorted. You have calculator. All of this are practically similar to how it probably works in the CAT as well, right? But look at it. The question will have 3 statements, and you need to classify them into 2 things, right? Let's say yes, no, true, false, right? It's international, it's domestic, or some such 3 classifications you need to do for 3 statements. You'll have to classify into 2 things. What would happen is 2 of the statements might be medium difficulty one. One would play with the words. GMAT actually loves to play with words, right? That it would seemingly mean something to you if you read it quickly, and then you would classify it as one thing, but the answer might be another, basically because they would have said it's a median of the averages versus the average of the median, some such play with words or other things that they would do, that you would end up marking it incorrectly. So GMAT, yes, per se, the conceptually what is tested in DA is not too difficult, but the way the exam is, and the thing is, you need to get the classification for all 3 statements right to earn 1 credit, right? It's like saying, I need to answer 3 questions to get 1 mark for it. And if I answer only 2 of them right and get 1 wrong, it's still a 0 mark. So getting tuned to this, getting tuned to the adaptive engine, that takes time. So catching deadlines for this year's MBA for a US business school, starting now and trying to write the GMAT might be a tough ask. But as you said, you've done justice to your CAT 90 percentile. If you're aiming for really the top-notch schools, and this 90 percentile may not make the cut for those schools, if that is what is you're reading, and you would want to take the CAT once more next year, then CAT comes in November. You have about 11 months in hand. What do you do in between? Shweta and Seema did a session for 2IM a little while ago, and they told those people to basically look at taking the GMAT sometime around February of this year, right? The GRE also has a possible examination. Pick one of these 2. Get the score done by March, February. You'll be able to do it because I've done justice to your CAT. That you can quickly wrap up with all these missing pieces, write a few mocks, and take this examination. You have a 705, 695 in the GMAT, or a 325 in the GRE, then you can bank that score, right? Prepare for your CAT. Apply to a select bunch of schools for 2026 admissions, and that application process starts in August of this year. Take your CAT mocks during that window, and then see where things take you, right? By February of 2026, you'll have some admissions from US European schools, probably with scholarship. And need to log this in like just a minute. Yeah. And then you also might have some admissions or calls from IIMs. You can decide which one makes more sense to you and then take it forward from there. 2025, little difficult. On to the next one. How many questions have I missed? How to approach if I'm aiming at Executive MBA in India or ISB. Executive MBA in India, you're talking about the PGPX programs, right? Typically, the deadlines for them are around the corner and should be done. So I'm assuming that you're looking at the Executive MBA program for the next window. You need the GMAT score or the GRE score. The Indian schools particularly, right? Keep this in mind. They do not accept the GMAT or the GRE score that has been taken at home, right? There's an online version of this examination. None of these business schools accept it. They would want you to take this examination at the center. This is most important. To take the examination at the center, you need to have a valid passport. Just a week ago, we had a student who went to the center to write the GRE without the passport in hand and carried all other documents. Don't be one such person. That's what I want you to tell, because it hurts everyone to know that you've done justice to your preparation and you go there and those guys don't let you in because they can't. They asked you to get the passport with you, right? Have a valid passport with you. Prepare for the GMAT or the GRE, whichever is the one. In fact, I would suggest take a diagnostic test for both these tests. We have free diagnostic available in Wizako's learning portal. Those URLs will be posted by my team in the chat box. It might even be appearing behind somewhere here. Oh, I had probably, yeah, these are all there. I forgot. Subbu is not going to be very happy for me not letting the screen visible. Yeah, you guys can see it now, right? The point is take both these diagnostic tests, check out which is the test that works well for you, right? If you find that GRE is the test that's working well for you, invest your time in GRE. GRE makes the cut to these business schools as much as GMAT makes the cut to these business schools. There was a time when GRE had a small minority of the people who submitted their scores to these business schools. Today, if you look at Harvard, right, 2026 class, which is the people who joined in joining in 2024, right, those people, they basically, number of people, the percentage of people who went with the GMAT score was about 61, and the people who went with the GRE score was about 41, 42%. Some of them submitted both those things, which is why the percentage adds up to a little more than 100%. Right? So it's no longer a 10, 20% of the people apply with the GRE score, close to 40% of the people, not just apply, 40% of the class has submitted a GRE score. Harvard is not one off case. The same similar percentages work with Stanford and many, many business schools. There are business schools for which GRE submissions exceed 50%, which means more people submit the GRE than those who do the GMAT. Right? These are different examinations, though they test the same quant and verbal. And some of us are a lot comfortable with using those fancy words, right? Not too many fancy words are tested, but you would be happy saying pleonasm and tautology when I repeat things instead of saying that he's saying the same thing over and over again. So those kinds of people might probably find the GRE an attraction. The other people who might be good at critical skills, critical thinking, you might be comfortable with GMAT. So pick the two tests, write the diagnostic, submit it. We would send you a report of your performance, which is both human and AI edited or AI assisted one. At the end of it, you'll know, hey, this is what I need to do if I need to do justice to GMAT from where I'm starting right now. This is what I need to do for the GRE. Pick the one where you think you have a better chance and get going from there. Right? So take the scores and have it by April and mid-May, the way we talked about for the US business schools. Most of these applications start by June, July of the year, and catch them at the earliest round deadline. Right? The early deadlines start as early as June, July for Indian business schools PGPX programs. And if you can get an admit, then you can think about what you need to do there, and you can even have a leg up in terms of preparing for the MBA if you have your admissions in place. Small. Go to the next one. Your question is right now second in line for. Oh, okay, wait, that's Shweta. Right. Is there anything else that I missed out? I have 655 in the GMAT. Should I rewrite the test? Is what is the question? 655. I think would be the equivalent of 700, 710 in the yesterday. That is about 90, 92 percentile, which is a good score. It's a good score. It's a competitive score, right? The thing that you need to ask yourself is, what kind of schools am I looking at? Am I very keen on scholarships, right? If your schools you're looking at, you have at least 3, 4 of the 7, 8 schools that you're likely to be applying, or in the teens, right? 11 to 20 kind of a rank school. 655 is probably a little below what you might need for that kind of a school. In that case, you might want to try and attempt at the GMAT, push it to 695 plus, that becomes super competitive to apply to these schools. Second, you're saying that, hey, I'm not very keen on those 11 to 20. I'm okay with some things which are in the mid 20s too. 655 will make the cut for an admission and sometimes even for some amount of tuition fee waiver. But having a 695 there again would basically open doors to scholarship. Investing some more time, because you're going to be looking at, hopefully, I think it's a 2026 admission window. In that case, you can give yourself time to take the GMAT once more, push it to 695. If it happens, then this extra effort and the $300 odd that you spent in taking the GMAT will pay rich dividends in terms of some scholarship. Scholarship, yes, the first thing that comes to our mind is savings in dollars, no doubt at all. But look at other things that come to your mind. If you're writing a resume for internship, or you're writing a resume for a post MBA job, after your name, email, and basics about you, the first thing that you're going to be saying is that I got a 30% tuition fee, I got a full ride for doing my MBA, right? That you're basically going to highlight the fact that your application was so competitive that the school paid you money to come and study with them. Right? So getting some scholarship, any amount of scholarship, right? It could be even $1,000 that they give you, right? It is not the quantum of money. Quantum of money certainly means we're not saying no, but the fact that you are given a scholarship makes a world of difference. And for that, it possibly will be more meaningful. If, again, keep this in mind. If you have the time window, if you're not applying for 2025, looking at 2026, and you have the energy, do it. I would say muster the energy to do it, if I can even go one step more and asking you to do that, right? Let's look at, I think we have about another 5 minutes to take a couple of questions. I'll do it. The rest of the questions, if you could post it to us to our WhatsApp 9500048484. Shweta or I will leave a voice note or will answer those questions. We're not able to take all of them at this point, right? What is the next? I think I'll have to scroll down. There's a lot of Shweta answers. I saw on Reddit that the GMAT test pattern is very different from the mocks. How do I know what to expect in my test? I read those postings too. I read someone who had actually mentioned saying that he got a series of 4 RC passages one after the other, which is not how the mocks are laid out. They have the CR questions which come in between the RC questions. And I think the person who had written it also said something similar about either MSR or some DS questions in the data insights too, right? Good thing is that we know that someone has got this kind of a question bunching in the GMAT, right? Will it happen to you when you write the GMAT? We do not know, right? GMAT mocks, do they give that kind of a thing? They do not. So do the GMAT mocks to start with. That gives you an idea if how the GMAT used to be is how it comes to you when you take the GMAT. You have practiced enough for that. What if it is a little different? What if it happens to you the way it happened to the person who posted it on Reddit? You need to be prepared for that eventuality too, now that we're aware of it. My thing is, in a single mock, in no mock are you likely to see 4 RC passages coming back to back. My thing is, pick places where you have topic-wise RCs. For example, Wizako's learning portal has got RC passages tests. Like each test is of 10 questions with about 3 passages is what we have. Pick 2 tests back to back. Write 6 RC passages in a go. Right, 40 minutes of 6 RC passages. Typically, you have this entire thing can have a maximum of 4 RC passages. You're doing 6 back to back. Do 3, 4, 5 such iterations. You're backing yourself saying that, hey, you throw me so many RCs at me at one go. I'm ready for you is a kind of approach you're taking. So be prepared for the eventuality. If it happens, wonderful. Otherwise, it's okay. And when you're preparing for DS, quite often, you would have done this. You would have done a bunch of DS questions together, right? DS would have taken 20 questions in a go and you would have solved that. So 7 DS questions happening together is in a way good. You're tuned into solving those 7 DS and you can push it out. You're saying, hey, DS, ho gaya yaar. Let me look at what next later on, right? So in DI, I think it should not matter so much. But in verbal, yes, doing RC back to back sometimes could be unnerving, could be enervating. So you need to do things that could you set yourself up. We had a student way back in 2003. This gentleman finally went to IIM Calcutta. He took the GMAT. He used to say GMAT examination those days used to be a 3-hour 45-minute examination, not the 2-hour 15-minute that we have right now. This guy used to come in the morning to our center, start at 10:30, finish one GMAT mock, and then go quickly grab a cup of coffee, come back, do another GMAT mock. 2 GMAT mocks back to back is mindless, is what I would say. 8 hours. But he said, if I can sit 8 hours and do justice, the second mock, he would always say, I want to score better than the first mock. That's the way he pushed himself. If I can do it for 8 hours, the 4-hour examination will be a breeze for me. He scored very well in the GMAT. He scored a 730 in the GMAT. He also got through IIM Calcutta that year. We went to IIM Calcutta, right? So essentially what I'm saying is, if you're aware of something, good that you are aware that it is happening because someone under it said that it's happening. You can be prepared for it, right? That note, I think I have one more question. Let me see what my team is saying. Which Sandeep? Yeah. I want to start my GMAT prep with you, and I really need to start from the scratch with math. I'm really bad at math, so do you teach from ground basics? Is what the question is. Because it was a question specifically about us, I thought I should address it before we move on. Start from the basics. We start from absolute basics. Let's say for number properties class, we'll start with the types of numbers. That's where we start, right? Any of these topics, we work as much on the basics as we scale up to tougher level questions. About 13 classes, each of about 2 hours, 2.5 hours duration, which stretches to about 2 hours, 45 minutes, where all of these concepts are tested one after the other. I would recommend you to do 2 things. One, I would want you to sign up for a demo class and attend a quant demo. So you can also take a verbal demo. We can do this and that. You're welcome to doing both. But attend a quant class and then see whether the way the class goes, because you're going to be a part of an existing batch. We are not going to run a class specifically for you. So it's not a screensaver version for you. You're going to be thrown into the 11th class of 13 classes for a batch, 7th class of 13 classes for a batch, right? So you'll be somewhere in between. You might probably be joining us in a permutation probability class 2, not even class 1. See, when you're coming to a permutation probability class 2, that is the class that's available next, are you still able to grasp And are you able to ask questions during the class, get the doubts clarified, and make meaningful progress? If you think that's happening, then probably our program is for you, right? Also attend a verbal class. You might be comfortable with verbal, but still there are nuances to verbal and GMAT which are different from how we typically speak, write, and work with the English language. So you might want to have an insight about that too before you start taking the decision. Whether you're good, bad, ugly in math, I would recommend take this demo class. That would kind of give you an idea. The second thing I wanted you to do is also look at the free topic that we have in our portal, which is statistics and averages. Run through that, right? So that would tell you an idea about how the entire online course is structured, because that's going to be provided as a part of the GMAT Live online classes for all students. So go through that. You'll know how it is laid out, how the videos are there, how the slide packs are there, what the checkpoint quizzes test. Do the checkpoint quizzes have explanations? How does it work? And it'll give you an idea about this is how the rest of it is also laid out. If these make sense to you, if you think that this fits your learning methodology, that's what you're looking at, then more than happy to uh, teach you for the GMAT. Right. On that note, thank you so much. Wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We'll catch up, you and we will meet in February. Shweta will be doing a session in January along the same lines with questions that come into us during that time. So till then, best wishes and a very happy 2025.